Welcome to GTC's Teaching Tidbits. Each episode, we explore a teaching technique, tip, practice, or idea from faculty for faculty. And today, we have joining us from Supply Chain Management, Angela Brown. Welcome, Angela.
Hey, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad to have you joining us today. And before we jump into your teaching tidbit, which I'm very excited about, would you tell us a little bit about your background and the courses you've taught, a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm in my second semester here at Greenville Technical College as a full-time instructor, and I teach supply chain logistics classes, purchasing classes, and I teach in person, asynchronous online, and the hybrid classes. And and I came from the manufacturing world into, and I was in supply chain in the manufacturing world, and now I've transitioned that over into teaching.
I love that. And I am so excited about today's episode because connecting with our students, creating a welcoming, inclusive environment, and keeping students engaged can be challenging.
Yes.
And as instructors, we're always looking for new ways to do this. So when I heard about this technique that Angela uses, I got really excited. I haven't had the opportunity to try it, but I knew this would be such a fun thing. So Angela's here to share this technique that she uses with her students that she has found to be effective, informative, and fun. And I put the emphasis on the word fun for students and instructor. So Angela, I am going to turn it over to you to share your teaching tidbit.
So a little bit of background on how my 3 minutes of nonsense came about. It's a funny story because I like just reading stuff that nobody else cares about. And I'm a documentary fanatic, so I like to watch documentaries. And I would get into conversations with colleagues and my family, and I would tell these random stories that nobody cared about. And they would say, Angela, not your nonsense again, or Angela, go away with your nonsense. And so that's how this became my 3 minutes of nonsense segment. And what I do is when we get into class, the very first class, I will assign everybody a day that they have to come in with 3 minutes of nonsense. And I explain to them what they can bring, facts, whatever they want to bring. It's their 3 minutes to talk about whatever they want to, some weird but true fact. And they would just have fun with this. They really would. And not only would they have fun, it gives me more stories to tell my colleagues and family without having to do the research. So it was just really, really fun. And what I found out is after everybody had a chance to do it, then I would just ask for volunteers. So who wants to do it today since everybody's already had a chance? And I would always be prepared in case nobody spoke up, but I would have 2 and 3 students saying, I have something. And it became so fun. So if I may, I'd just like to share just some of the stories that they brought to the classroom. So we had a chef in one of the classroom, and he told us that a chef's toque has 100 peaks. And that is to symbolize 100 ways that you can cook an egg. Now, he said that nobody has been able to prove that that is where that came from, or if there is 100 ways to cook an egg, but that's the story. He just knows for sure that there are 100 folds in a chef's toque. So that was very interesting and coming from a chef. And then one student taught us that cotton candy was invented by a dentist. Who knew? And we were like, maybe he had an ulterior motive. He was trying to give all of the kids cavities so that, his business would flourish. But he got together with the candy maker and they made the candy, cotton candy machine, and it was called Fairy Floss. Go figure. So learn that in a 3 minute segment. we learned that the dot over the J and I is called the tittle. And that's where the phrase to the T comes from. Now, I don't know if it's dot every I and cross every T comes from that as well, but to the T comes from the tittle, because in a play once, there was a line in the play that said, I'm going to quote him to the tittle, and hence the phrase to the T. I learned that water makes different pouring sounds depending on its temperature. I did not know that, but if you listen very closely, you will hear that cold water makes a different sound than hot water, because the heat changes the thickness of the water, therefore changing the pitch when the water is pouring. Yeah, fun stuff. I bet a physics professor or maybe biology, one of them would love that. This is one of my favorites, because I learned that there's an annual coffee break festival in Wisconsin. And it says that this started when a group of women were working at a tobacco facility, and they would stop and take a break and go brew some coffee and just chit chat. And so that's how we got coffee break. And I saved this last one because when we did this one, when the student taught us that Iceland doesn't have a public railway system, that had a segue into Iceland's industry, what their supply chain looks like, and that just opened the door to all of these supply chain discussions. And that's what happened throughout the semester with this little segment. I got the students to engage, talking about something that they really wanted to talk about. And then when we dove into supply chain, they would open up a little bit more about that. They were feeling a little giddy. They were feeling, they would share. Some students didn't have a problem sharing. Some students are a little more introverted, and they needed, they need a little bit more of a pull to get it out of them. And this 3-minute segment just always seemed to do the trick.
I love that, Angela. How I was sitting here thinking, as you were saying, how it just really got them to start engaging with the class content as well. I thought, what a great way to kind of give them a boost of confidence in front of their classmates to be able to talk about something as kind of an authority on that. Let me ask you, because I think some who watch this episode will want to know, what are some of the guidelines or rules that you gave them for this 3 minutes of nonsense? Because I know you had to put some, parameters on it to keep it within the time frame, but also to keep it, appropriate for the classroom. What are some of those guidelines or rules that you gave them?
Yes, great question, Rachel. So I would always tell them, if you can't tell it to your 5-year-old sibling, or you can't tell it to your mom, or you wouldn't be comfortable stating it in church or anywhere else where, it wouldn't be appropriate, then it's not appropriate for the classroom. And I told them that it needed to be, general, not even PG. I want you to make this kid friendly. So anything that you bring into the classroom to discuss, you need to be able to discuss it in front of any audience. So, and then I also gave them a few topics that, they couldn't talk about as well. Yeah. These are topics that you cannot bring in here. And so. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you kind of set the boundaries, but still left it so open. And how creative. I was listening to all of these different things, and my love of those kinds of facts was just drinking that all in. Yeah. So I'm sure that they talk about that after class as well.
Oh, they do. And I just learned so much from them. And even when I was lecturing and something came up, somebody might say, oh yeah, remember when he told us? So it was just a good way to get them to sharing. And one student's nonsense was that she came out of her apartment and fell all the way down the steps. that morning. And she says, and that's all the nonsense I have today. That was enough for one day. And so she shared with the class that she fell down her steps, and that was pretty nonsense because she was carrying too much. And yeah, so the lesson is don't carry things as you're trying to go down the flight of steps.
Oh, I love that. And it sounds like the students are loving it as well. So thank you for sharing this with us today. I think you're
Quite
going to
welcome.
inspire a lot of people to think about how this might be a technique they try out in their classes, regardless of the format.
Right. Yes. Thank you,
Well,
Rachel.
oh, you're welcome. And I'm to all those who are watching, I'm sure if you have questions, if you'd like to continue the conversation with Angela, I know she would welcome that.
Yes.
Her email is here on the screen. It's angela.kbrown@gvltec.edu. So don't miss that extra .k Brown, because we have more than one
Yes.
Angela Brown here at the college. But please feel free to reach out to Angela with any questions, comments, just to continue the conversation. Or if you try it in your classes, I know that Angela would love to hear your stories and hear
Yes, I
how it
would.
goes for you. I
Yes.
would, for that matter.
Yes.
Um, as always, if you have questions you'd like answered, topics you'd like to see covered in episodes of Teaching Tidbits, please let me know. I'm always looking for new topics and what you want and need to hear. So you can email me at rachel.cobb@gvltec.edu. And of course, if you have a tidbit worth sharing or you know someone who does, please let me know. I would love to reach out to them and invite them to share on an episode coming up in the future. Well, that's this week's GTC Teaching Tidbit, and we'll see you next time.